Welcome back to my podcast, Coffee with Kim. Thank you for joining me today. It's always a pleasure when you join me and spend time with me. Remember, this is a time where you can grab your coffee or your tea or whatever you have in your cup, sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation. So, today I'm going to talk a bit about mental health, but I'm going to do it from a different perspective. I want to talk or interview someone I've known for many years now who actually grew up with a parent who suffered from mental health issues. And so I feel like, this mental health is a buzzword. It's something that we're really dealing with today in our society. Um, we've been dealing with it for a while now, but I think the pandemic brought a lot of it out for a lot of people. But there are some of us who have dealt with this for a long time. And for a long time, we didn't know what it was. I remember having a cousin who had mental health issues. He was actually schizophrenic. And we did not know. We just thought he was funny, that he just talked to himself, laughed and danced and, made fun. We had no idea that he was suffering from mental health issues. So I just want to introduce a very special person to me. And I know I always say that. I always say, this is a very special person, but trust me, this is a very special person to me. My dear sister, Jackie Seals. I've known Jackie for some time now, long time. She's a member of my church. And from the time I've met her, I promise you, she has been just a special person and a blessing to me and my family. So, Jackie, welcome to Coffee with Kim.
Thank you, Cole.
You are
Please
welcome.
forgive me because I am at work and you may hear some outside noise, but I'm so glad to be here and thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. And we don't mind those passing bys or the cars and all those things that may happen. Because guess what? We are out here living real life. You know what I mean?
Yes, it's
So that
real.
is a-okay. So Jackie, I've been wanting to invite you to my show for some time now, but really for a couple reasons. So trust me, you will be back because there's another subject matter that we need to talk about. Okay. But today
Okay.
we are going to talk about growing up in a home with a parent who suffered from mental health issues, for illness, actually. Um, Thank you for being so open and willing to talk to us about this today. And I think I got this idea from there was a conference that I spoke at once, and it was a conference about cancer awareness. And the host of the conference asked me to be the main speaker, and I was thinking, how can I speak to cancer? I've never had it, but she wanted me to talk about it from being a child who grew up in a home with a parent who suffered from cancer, and what my experiences were. And so I thought, wow, what a different perspective to talk to someone who actually grew up in a home with a parent who did suffer from mental health illness. So, Jackie, let me ask just a few questions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, First, just tell us just a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, that type of thing. You have siblings? Were you from a two-parent home, a single-parent home? Just give us a little information about you, Jackie.
First of all, Cole, yes, I did grow up in a home where my mother was bipolar, paranoid, and my stepfather was schizophrenic. So both of my parents that I grew up with suffered. I am the oldest, and I, as I joke all the time that I grew up in chaos, so I'm able to operate in chaos,
Mm-hmm.
function in chaos.
Mm-hmm.
I had a brother and a sister on my mom's side. My biological father, I did not meet him till I was like 21 or so, and I am the oldest of 10 on his side.
Wow. 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 That's interesting. That is interesting. And what is also interesting is the fact that you grew up in a home where both parents, it's your stepdad, but apparently he was a dad to you,
Yes.
were
Hmm.
had mental health illness. Wow, that
Yes.
I did not know that. We've
Yes.
talked
And my
about
dad, I did not know he wasn't my dad until I was about 16.
wow. We are probably from that era where our parents, you know, they believe that those were the best things to do. I can't really say
Mhm.
always that that's always the best way to handle situations like that, but that's not what this podcast is about. Okay. But I mean, first of all, just finding out that this was not your biological father, I'm sure that had a big impact on you.
Yeah, yeah, it did because I found out through one of my cousins. We were playing, and they felt the need to tell me. It wasn't like my mom set me down and said, "Okay, we got to tell you that this is not your dad."
Wow.
My cousins on my stepfather's side is who told me through the game that we were playing.
Wow. Kids can be cruel. That's one thing I've
Yeah,
learned over the
yeah.
years. So let me ask you this. How or when did you discover that your mother was mentally ill?
So when I was about 15, 16 years old, um, I got up in the morning, I believe, and I was looking for my mom. She was very um, nurturing. So she would get up and fix us breakfast and get us ready for school and, do all the things that moms do.
Hmm.
And I couldn't find her in the house. And I went in her room, and she was in her closet on the floor with a knife.
Wow.
And I knew something was wrong, right? So I just called my aunts to say, something's wrong. Can you guys come?
So did your aunts know that your mom had a mental illness?
I would think that's probably the first time she ever did a 72-hour hold, actually needed to be hospitalized. I don't remember any time before that she actually needed to be hospitalized.
So you never saw any signs, anything different, strange, out of the ordinary that your mom did that maybe made you kind of, but I mean, you were 15, 16. So,
Right.
what do we know at that age? How we grew
Right.
up is how we grew up. What was normal in our
Mhm.
homes was normal. So I get how that could be. I have a friend whose mother has a mental illness, and she told me that she and her sibling were like school age when it was discovered, because she said her mom uh, got on the freeway in the car. She pulled over and got she and her sister out of the car, and told them
Mhm.
that there was someone listening in, and they had to get out of the car. And they were two children and a woman walking on the 70th floor.
Wow.
And she said that's when her life changed. Now, her life
Yeah.
went a different direction, as far as how she lived after that. But as far as you're concerned, when your mom was put on that 72-hour hold, what were you thinking? What was going on in your mind at that point?
Well, at first it was really disruptive for me because in all of my mother's mental illness, she still worked for 30 years, right?
Wow.
For a well known aircraft company. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And so when this is happening for the first time, I'm not really understanding, although I have an amazing, supportive, extended family.
Mm.
So I had an aunt that was like a mother to me. And my mother, for years, told us, even as little kids, she would tell us, if anything ever happens to me, I want you to have at least one aunt. So you find you one that
Wow.
you really get along with, you know. Don't just think, you know, it's just me. So I
Hmm.
had one aunt who was an RN. Um,
Okay.
and she and her other sisters, you know, would come. So I was scared, but I was old enough that, you know, and very well. And so my aunts were really, really supportive. So they would come and they would give me like chores and things to do. And they would check, you know, did we have grocery? And they would get her bills and make sure her bills were paid. And they would tell me, you know, especially until the weekend, you know, okay, this is what we're going to need to do. And then they call me, you know. And so even though my mom was in the hospital, they would check in on me. And then early Saturday morning, they'd be knocking on my door. And then they, you know, clean the house, wash the clothes, do whatever. But like to make it through that week while they were at work, you know, I would have to call by a certain time, and I would get my brother up and my sister and get them to school and make sure they got home and stuff like that. So it felt a little weird, but my mom had prepared me at that point in life. You know, I knew what I was doing.
That is amazing. And it really reminds me a lot of myself, but of course, for a different reason. My mom had cancer. And when she got sick, it was kind of like I had to take over.
Yeah,
You know, I had to become this little mini adult and make sure that things got done. You
yeah.
know, there was no question about it. So tell me about your stepdad. So what was going on with him? Did you know prior to your mom having a mental kind of break, if you will? Had your stepdad had anything happen like that prior to?
Yeah, so I'm thinking that maybe their domestic violence, you know, the abuse, um, probably even triggered her bipolar. You know, I'm not sure, but I would say that my mom and dad would get in these really horrific physical fights, and we just thought. I was kind of like what you were saying about your family member. You know, we just thought he was mean. You know, I didn't know that he was schizophrenic, right? It wasn't the kind of schizophrenic where he just sit up here and start talking to, you know, his name was, well, maybe we shouldn't say his name, but,
Right.
you know, but it wasn't like, let's say his name was David or something. We just gonna change it,
Right.
right? And then
Right.
all of a sudden he just starts talking to Joe. No, 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 it wasn't like that. You know, he would hear voices though, right? And
Mm.
then when he hears those voices, for example, I remember sitting at dinner one day before I found out about my mom, and she had washed the dishes and we were done eating, and we were about to get up and wash the dishes. And something in his mind said that she was mad at him. And he just got up and went in the room and just started beating her in the face. You know,
Wow.
we were just sitting there eating dinner, you know? So, and, you know, of course, you know, they separated and he moved out the house, but it was my mom still was very loving of him because she wanted us to have a parent. And so eventually he did get to the hospital and he did they would give him medication, and I will never forget when he first got the medication, they gave him some type of drug, and I don't remember the name. I want to say Thorazine or something like that, but it was very, very strong. And it was so strong that he walked around like with his head down and kind of sluggish. And every now and then he would drool because he just couldn't feel. He was numb. He was like a
Wow.
zombie, you know?
Yeah. And that's not uncommon to see people who have been diagnosed with some type of mental illness, and when they get placed on medication, you know, they have to figure out
Play
what
with
the
it.
right dose is. And so sometimes I guess, you know, maybe if they have like a huge some type of outbreak or something, that they will just give them the strongest dose they can, to kind of tone them down and then try to, figure it out as they go. So, wow, I know that was hard to watch. So, not only did you deal with mental illness, dealing with a parent, but geez, you also dealt with domestic violence.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That was a lot growing up. That's
Yes.
a lot growing up. So let me ask you this. How did your siblings, I know you said you're the oldest,
Mhm.
and I can identify with that, but how did your siblings, deal with that?
Um, for one, they really depended on me a lot. Like when
Sure.
something was going on in the house, they would look to me like, okay, what do we do? You know, I would say that my brother felt like it was my mom's fault that we experienced so much trauma through the domestic violence part. So
Okay.
to the day my mother passed, my brother stopped calling my mom mom. He just started
Wow.
calling her by her first name, you know, and he
Really?
moved away. Both my sister and my brother live out of state, you know. But
Okay.
once my brother was old enough to move away and be on his own, then that's what he did, because he felt like my mom should have um, been quicker about getting my dad out of the home.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Wow. That's something. Whenever there's trauma or something like the like in a home growing up as a child, it has an effect, on each child if there's more than one so differently. So,
Yes.
with me being the oldest, when my mother got sick, I became the caregiver for my siblings. And, they didn't really know the difference because they were really young. My sister was 2 when it first started, and my brother was 6. And by the time our mother passed away, she was only 32 years old. By the time she passed away, they were 7 and 3. So they were still very, very young. So they didn't understand all the things that I saw and I witnessed and I had to deal with. So I totally identify with being the oldest and having to just, strap on those boots and getting the job done.
Yeah.
I get that. I totally get that. So it seems like you had a really supportive family, which is really good because sometimes, when mental health or mental issues, take notice in a family, sometimes people tend to shun away because they don't really know what's going on, or even that person can have behaviors that could cause people to be fearful, and so it was good that your aunties stepped in and kind of kept the house going. The amazing part was that they just kept the life moving as it was. They didn't let you guys, sometimes people don't let you have a chance to fall apart,
Yeah.
and I know with me in my situation, I didn't have a chance to fall apart.
Mhm.
It was too much to do.
Right.
So it sounds like the same thing with you. It was too much to do to fall apart,
Absolutely.
and so I think that's an amazing thing and I'm pretty sure, let me stop here, let me pause here. I'm pretty sure that everything that you experienced is part of who you are today.
Let me just say, let me just say, I work for social services, and um, I'm a minister, and we could just go on and on. It's who I am today.
Wow.
Mhm.
That
I
that's
heard
amazing.
this amazing minister preach this sermon called "There's Purpose in Your Dysfunction." I've been cured ever since.
You've been cured ever since. I think I cured myself
Right?
when I did that. Yes, 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 yes. That is great. Okay, so you know what, Jackie, we're gonna stop here and go ahead and have a commercial.
Okay.
But I have so many more questions and I'm pretty sure we're not going to be able to get to them all, but I'll just kind of filter through the ones that I think are most important. But
Okay.
thank you again. We're going to a commercial right now.
Do you have a business, brand, or even a creative idea? Pyro Media Network can help you design a strategy to make your brand impactful. Visit www.pyromedianetwork.com today to schedule a free consultation. Pyro Media Network, next level media.
Okay, we are back from our commercial, and I'm back. If you just joined us on Coffee with Kim, the podcast, I am interviewing Jackie Seals, who experienced mental health from a different perspective. She grew up in a home with two parents who were experiencing mental health issues. And when we started this, I didn't know it was two parents.
Yes.
So now to know that you dealt with two parents, man, I have so much more respect for you. It's just amazing. But I have a question for you. What were some of your coping skills when dealing with your mother and your father's highs and lows? And where did you learn those coping skills?
When I think about coping skills, there's one that comes to mind quickly is um, when you're having a good day, have a good day. Acknowledge the day because you never know when you're going to have a really bad day. So if you're having a good one, and even those bad ones, to kind of take something good out of even that bad day so that you can function. And where did I get that from? I can't really say that someone taught me that. I can just say that it was my way of survival. Like I would say to myself, today there was no explosion, there was no fight, there was no, I made it to school on time, and, you know, it was a peaceful day, So I know that is definitely one. Another thing is if there was a bad day, like say my mom did have to go to the hospital, I do remember somebody saying to me, she's at the hospital now, so you can rest. And I think that that's something that, children or family members who have, um, family with mental illness, they're still worrying and they're running up to the hospital and visiting and bringing them clothes and, you know, still trying to be family while they're in the hospital. When in reality, that's your time to rejuvenate yourself because they coming out.
Oh my God. Wow. I'm speechless right now, honestly. That was huge. Now it's your time to rest.
Yeah. It's not your
That's
time to
something
be
people
going to
need to hear.
visit and do all that. I think it's better for you to go ahead and get your rest. Like for me, like I said, I had family members that also helped. So when
Yes.
my mom was in the hospital, then they would go see her and I
Wow.
would be recovering.
That's amazing. That's amazing. People need to hear that.
Yeah.
People need to hear that. That is an amazing coping mechanism. It's something people need to hear, and not just about dealing with folks with mental health issues, but just a number of other things. When that person is away,
Yeah.
now it's time to rest. Now it's time to refuel, to gather yourself again, to get yourself ready
Yeah.
for whatever it is that you're going to have to deal with when that person returns. That's a lot.
Yeah.
You said a mouthful. So Jackie, we we understand that mental health illness and health in general results from both genetics and environment.
Mhm.
But really, in most cases, we don't inherit the illness itself, but we do inherit the predisposition to develop it. Has there ever been a time that you felt like, hmm, I wonder if this is something I'm going to deal with myself? And I'll tell you why I asked that question. Because when I was young, when I first got married, a lot of things that I had or happened to me or I did resembled some of the things that happened or my mother did, and even around the same age. So when those things were happening, the enemy plays with your mind. When those things started happening, when I started, turning 30 and I turned 31, and honestly, because my mother suffered from age 31 and passed away at 32, in my mind, I already felt like, yeah, this is pretty much going to be the way, I leave here the same way she did. Even some of the illness that she had, I didn't have cancer or anything, but some of the things that she dealt with in her body, I had started dealing with in my body as well. And I really felt like I may not make it past 32. And I remember on my 33rd birthday, I was just so happy. And people were like, why are you excited about a 33rd birthday? That's not one of those, birthdays like your 45th or your 50th. And I said, you just don't understand. My mother didn't live past 32. So now I know that I'm okay.
Right.
Did you ever have a time where you felt like, I wonder if I may, have something going on?
Well, when I look back on it, I must say that you know how people say kids are sponges, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
if you're a sponge to someone who's schizophrenic, or you're a sponge to someone who's paranoid, bipolar, then you're soaking up what you see them do.
Wow.
So when I had situations like I remember, I don't know, being maybe 18 or something like that, and I had a car and my car got repossessed because I lost my job and I was working like as a PBX operator, something like that. And I thought that was like a big time clerical. I'm in the office job. I wasn't working at McDonald's or nothing like that. So when I lost my job, and then my mom would say, you better go get you a job at McDonald's, Burger King, anything you got to do to get you a job so you could pay that car note. And she was trying to teach me a lesson to say that I'm not going to just pay it for you. You have to stand on your own 2 feet. So she didn't pay it. The car got repossessed. So, of course, at 18 years old, I got depressed about it. Well, depressed means I should kill myself.
Wow.
So I did what I seen my mama do.
Wow.
I took a gang of pills. And I'll never forget the ambulance driver coming to pick me up, and they asked me why I did this, and I explained it to them, and they slapped me.
What?
They slapped me because I was falling asleep.
Okay.
It was so strong, but I think they also slapped me. They said that is not a reason to kill yourself. You know what I mean? So I think that person just got that in. But anyway, so those are the type of things that I, and then there were other things that I noticed as I was getting older that I was more paranoid about. But I wasn't paranoid. I was just following the habits of my mother. This is how she operated. Like you could come to my mom's house, and my house, when my mama lived, you could eat off her floors, right?
Yeah.
She just was our house was immaculate, right? But every time somebody would want to come over, she would be very upset because she just kept thinking the house was filthy. It was
Wow.
filthy. Every time somebody comes, she was like, y'all got this messy out. To this day, I still struggle. When
Yes.
somebody says they're going to come to the house,
Right,
you
right.
know, and I could have just got through cleaning up. But
Right. So that was some learned behavior. So it wasn't so much that you developed a predisposition to, one day become mentally ill, but some of that was learned
yeah,
behavior that you experienced. You saw it happen. And I mean, we're still kids, even though we've taken on this parent type role, we're still kids. So we are still learning from our environment. So that makes a whole lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Yes. Let me ask you this other question. Who did you go to for help, for advice? It sounds like you already answered that, really, for comfort, while you were taking care of your mom. We talked, they have this thing now, everybody has a person. Who was your person?
well, the reason why I went to my aunts and uncles is because I did not want my mom to say that I didn't do the right thing while she was sick.
Hmm.
Because she would hold that against me, especially as we started to understand the illness, I would always be the one that had to take her to the hospital.
Okay.
So if I was going to handle some of her personal business or, whatever I had to take care of, I'd run it by my uncles and aunts first.
Mhm.
But I also had cousins that are like sisters to me
Okay.
who, I would call and say, can you come run with me to the hospital with her? You know, or when I get back from the hospital, I could vent to.
Yes, yes. And that's so good, because sometimes we can just operate in a silo when we have something, because, I mean, you could have thought of that as something so personal, so embarrassing, or whatever could have been going through your mind as it relates to your mom, because, back then, it wasn't like mental health education is big now, but back then it's like, let's just take them to the hospital and give them some medicine. And maybe there wasn't as much counseling and all the things that go on now, to help people with mental health or education, really, because really that person who is struggling or dealing with that illness, they need to be educated about what's happening to them, even educated about the medication that they're taking, the side effects, what'll happen, what they may experience. And so, back then probably didn't happen the way it happens today. So it's good that you had the wherewithal to have a person, have a person that you could, talk to, vent to, because I can only imagine that you had a lot to vent about,
Yeah,
because it almost seems like it kind of erases just a little bit of your childhood, because now you have to step into this adult role.
yeah, and Cole, I want to add to that. Another coping mechanism that I had to accept is this is the mother, the father that God gave me.
Ooh, wee.
Period. So
Wow.
if she come up to my job manic and acting a fool, if she is at the church house, you know, manic, or if she's in public somewhere, that's my mama. Mental
Wow.
health and all, she still took care of me. She was still, I mean, I couldn't ask for a better mother. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
So I'm not going to be ashamed of her
Hmm.
illness no more than I would be if she was diabetic or she had high blood
Sure.
pressure.
Wow. What a healthy way of looking. That's an amazingly healthy outlook. Most people don't think like that. Most people, especially at that age, at that time. So that's probably, that outlook that you had is probably one of the things that helped you get through.
Yeah.
So we're going to start bringing this podcast to an end, but I have a couple questions for you. Not even dealing with, or you could answer them as it relates to, what you've experienced as a young adult on up to, your mother. I know your mom passed away. What do you wish your younger self knew that you know now?
I wished that I would have known that the times that mental illness separated me and my mom, that I would not have allowed those separations, because there were times when after my mom would get better, let's say she get out of the hospital, I was the one who, generally speaking, I was the one who took her to the hospital. So she would be angry for a good 3 weeks to maybe 2 months at me.
Okay.
Because she experienced all that she experienced in the process of going to the hospital.
Sure.
Right?
It's traumatic. Yeah.
So she would be mad at me and saying mean things to me until she settled down, until her mind gets all the way back right. Because my mom would have a episode, maybe, let's say if she had an episode in 2005, she may not have another episode to 2015.
Oh, wow.
All those years, we're fine. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So when that episode does take place, for those 2 months or so afterwards, she's angry and bitter and mean, and and so I would have to cut myself off and say, I know I did the best I could. I asked everybody around me to make sure I was doing the right thing. And so sometimes I would say, well, I'm not talking to you. But if I could tell my younger self, I would, now that I've been through it, I would say, you know what, it's not necessary for you to cut yourself off. Why don't you take a break today and check in tomorrow?
Okay. That's some good advice to your younger self. But of course, when we are our younger self, we don't have that type of wisdom, But now I think about things like that, because I think about the fact that maybe I didn't know certain things when I was younger, but I do know them now. So now I feel the obligation to share them with younger people.
Yeah.
So that they don't have to experience and go through some of the same things, that maybe I went through, or not as long as I went through it, or not as much as I went through it, because we all have to have our own experiences, which is true. And the last thing I want to ask you, and I want to thank you again for being here and just being so open and candid and transparent. What do you know for sure?
What I know for sure is God was there all the time.
Wow.
That's what I know for sure. No doubt. I was never alone. I was never alone.
Yes. He was there
He was
sure.
there the whole time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being with me today, Jackie. I really do. Like I said, I appreciate, your candidness and your openness and being transparent, and your respect for your family, for your mom and her memory, and the fact that regardless to what you experienced with her when she was having an episode, you really and truly did know that she was a great mom. And so, for those of you who are listening today, I hope this podcast was helpful. I know there are some people out there who also have grown up with domestic violence, with mental health issues, dealing with a parent, an ill parent. I hope our podcast today just kind of shined a light on the fact that there is hope. There is hope, and you will get through it. So thank you so much. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you the next time. Until then, you take care and you stay safe.